Good morning, Morai Rabotai. We are continuing on Masechet Avodah Zarah, and we are on Daf Yud Chet Amud Aleph, about 9 lines down from the top of the Amud, and we are amidst classic Agatas, the story that we started of the Harugei Malchut, Rabbi Hanina ben Tradion, and his wife and daughter who were sentenced to death. Rabbi Hanina ben Tradion, because he learned Torah and taught Torah publicly. We're going to discuss the full story of Rabbi Hanina ben Tradion. And of course, his wife was sentenced to be killed, and his daughter to be put in Kubashel Zonot, to be servicing the Roman officials as a Rahman Islan, as a Zonah. And the Gemara says the reason that he did this, he was sentenced, really was because Hoga Shem Beotiotea. We mentioned Machloket Rashi and Tosafot, if it's the Shem Membet, the extensive name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that he used, and he mentioned and he used the Tosafot saying that perhaps he said the Yud Kei Vav Kei, the way it's written, he read it, not the way we read it with the name of Aleph Dalet. And that's the problem of Hogeh Hashem Beotiotav, pronouncing the name of Yud Kei Vav Kei with its actual pronunciation, which was Asur. We mentioned before that the Tosafot in Masechet Sukkot of Hey, the Gemara in Sanhedrin, the Tosafot there in the beginning of Perek Chelek discussed this as well, that perhaps even saying the words of Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey would be a problem, and so on. Now the Gemara says his wife was sentenced because Adelo Micha, because she saw this and she didn't say anything. Now, of course, if this was such a subtlety, and the Gemara says, well, he didn't really do it, even as a problematic way, he did it lehit lamed, that lehit lamed, to teach and to learn is mutar, but nevertheless he did it publicly, and publicly is a problem. So that's a subtlety already. That be'emet he did something that was mutar, because he was teaching, but doing it publicly is a disrespect to Hashem's name. So it's a subtlety, and says the Gemara, his wife didn't have any sins of her own, but she was sentenced to what she was sentenced to because of the same sin, the same avirah of her husband, is just that she should have stopped him. And she didn't. Now that we already know from the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat. The Gemara there says when Beit HaMikdash was being destroyed, when the decree was made on the Beit HaMikdash to be destroyed, HaKadosh Baruch Hu put Tav Shel Chaim, put a sign, had the Malach put a sign on the Metzach, on the forehead of the tzaddikim, that they should be saved. Zchut of the Torah, they are tzaddikim, and there was a court case between Shel Mala of whether or not they should be saved. Hashem said they should be saved. Satan says no. Look, they could have stopped these people. They could have made macha'ah, and they didn't. And Hashem defends the tzaddikim, saying, "Galui v'yadua lefanai." I know, the only person that could know, I know that if they would have, had they objected and gave tochacha, they still wouldn't listen. They didn't have a power. And comes the winning argument from Satan. He says, "Galui v'yada lefanecha." You know, they didn't know that they won't be successful. They should have tried. See the tremendous chiyuv of acharayut, the responsibility that we have as Kol Yisrael Aravim Ze Bazeh. We're all guarantors of one another, and there's this real mitzvah. You can't, idly stand by and watch and not say anything. So here, the wife should have said something, and she didn't. She's punished. Now, very famous Rav Chaim Shmulevitz, he writes that this is subtlety. She's in a home, he's in the Bet Midrash. What he did wrong was done in Bet Midrash. How in the world? And he says, you see from here that the wife always knows what's wrong with the husband. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has created the Ezer Kenegdo. She's supposed to know. Something is off. Bina Yetera. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given binayat Torah to the woman, and even that Hashem expects them to do the right thing. So says the Gemara, Mikan Amru, from here they said, Kol mi sheyesh be'ado limchot ve'eno mochen einash alav. Any person that has within their power to make a macha, and again, based on the Gemara in Shabbat, make a macha even if it's not productive, as long as you have to try. In the halachot of Erev Yom Kippur, there are the Sharat Tziyun, the Mishnah Berurah discuss where exactly is a mitzvah, when it's not a mitzvah, because Chazal tell us it's a mitzvah ad she'akenu. You have to tell the person until he starts beating you up or, disrespecting you openly. You have to say it and say, Chocheach tocheach. That means, afilu ma'apa'amim. You do it 100 times, you have to do it. Until the guy objects strongly or starts beating you up. And that's by something that's at least by something that says in the Torah, you have to be careful. But even if you know that the guy is not going to listen, you got to try. You got to try. So that's the person that could be moche and he doesn't. Ne'enash alav. He will be chas v'shalom ne'enash. Ve'al bito yoshev bekubash hazonot. What was the story with the daughter that she should be sitting in kubash hazonot? Hashem yirachem. Kubash, that's the most itzniut. What did she do wrong? So the Gemara says, because Damar Rabbi Yochanan Pam Achat Hayta Bito Ma'alechet Lifnei Gedolei Romi. One time she was walking in presence of the great officers of the Roman government, and they made a comment about her. They made a comment. They said, Kama na'ot pisiyotea shel ribazu. Look at this young girl, how beautifully she walks. And she hears them saying this. She started being more careful in the way she walks. What's the problem? That's being impressed by the outside and trying to impress the outside. That goes against a Jewish woman. The pasuk says about a Jewish woman, Kol kevuda bat melech penima. All of the kavod, the glory of a Jewish woman is inwardly. She's not supposed to be impressing the outside world, and this is exactly what she did. Now, in her level, this was considered a grave sin for where she was holding in her avodat Hashem, and therefore, midah keneged midah, she was put into a forced situation of itzniut, of lack of tzniut. Right, because she chose to do something that was considered for her level a lack of tzniut, to impress the Roman government people. The way she walked, she was completely tzniut, right? What would have happened to nowadays? The whole culture of the Western world is to impress other people, and the moda, the fashions and so on and so forth. That's a different story. But nevertheless, in her level, this was considered a level of lack of tzniut, and midah keneged midah, she was put into a situation of lack of tzniut. V'hainu da'amar Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, as we'll see, nothing really happened to her at the end, but nevertheless. V'hainu da'amar Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, mai tichtiv avon hakeva yiseveni. What is it the pasuk says? The avon of my heel, of my feet, is going to surround me. Avorot sh'adam dash ba'akeva b'olam hazeh mesubinoto. That the small averot that the person thinks they're nothing, and this is like a subtlety. But says the Resh Lakish, those are the avorot that surround a person, mesubin lo leyom adin, that they're going to be surrounding him leyom adin. B'sha'ash yatzu shloshtan tzadku et adin. When they were taken to be killed, all three of them, they were matzdik et adin. They did psukim. They said psukim that justified HaKadosh Baruch Hu's judgment. That's called siduk adin. Hu Amar, when he was, and you'll see later on that it was not necessarily at the same exact time, but he was killed in front of his daughter and his family, and he said, Hatzur tamim paolo. He made the pasuk in the end of Chumash, Parashat Ha'azinu. The pasuk there says, Hatzur tamim paolo ki chol derachav mishpat And the rest of the pasuk is what his wife is going to say. El emunah ve'en avel tzadik v'yasharu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu's work is complete and his judgment is true. El emunah ve'en avel tzadik v'yasharu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is straight and he is just. Ishto amra el emunah ve'en avel tzadik v'yasharu. Bito amra, the daughter said a pasuk more complex from Yirmiyahu Navi. Gedol ha'etzah v'rav ha'aliliyah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu's tremendous wisdom, asher einecha pekuchot al kol darkei bnei adam, that your eyes are open and record all of the pathways of people. Latet leish kidrachav v'chifri ma'alalav, to give to a person what they deserve. And those are the psukim of tziduk adin. In other words, instead of yelling and screaming, they were saying psukim that show the justification of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's judgment. So says the Gemara, Amar Rebbe. Rebbe said, Kama gedolim tzadikim alalu. Look at how tremendous these people are. Shenizdamnu la'en shlosham mikraot shel tziduk adin. Beshat tziduk adin. That three different psukim, now well, the first two are the same pasuk, different parts of it, of tziduk adin, came to them at the time of tziduk adin. Now, this is tremendous because a person that's under such circumstances, Rahman al-Islam, the mind does not work unless you are so entrenched and every fiber of your being is with the Chumash and with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Then you're thinking like that, even under when they squeeze you to the end, still you're thinking psukim. That's tremendous. And I say, when the Nazis in Mach came to Tunisia, Baruch Hashem, the Sephardi countries were spared from the effects of the Nazi Germany, but they did go to some of the Sephardi countries. They got close to others. They went to Tunisia and Tunis, and on Shabbat morning, actually, they went in, some of the Nazi officers, and they took the Rav of the Kila out to speak with him. And they didn't get to kill anyone, but this is at the end of the war, and the Rav was coming out. As he's being brought out of the shul, he stops, and the officer says, "Why?" And he had like a little handkerchief in his pocket, and there was no eruv there, or he didn't carry in the eruv, and people knew what the Nazis do. They knew that this is it. This is like the beginning of the end, basically. But to have the presence of mind that even when you're being taken out with the Nazi Germany officers, to remember that, especially if there was Eruv, I don't remember the details, especially if there was Eruv, but he was Machmir an Eruv, to remember that I have to put this handkerchief out before I exit the shul. It's a tremendous presence of mind. Now, multiple that by many, many folds, and this is the presence of mind that they had, that even Bishat Tziduk Adin of this nature, they had the presence of mind, says Rebbe. Tan Rabbanan. Now, we have to do this story and then try to explain it step at a time. So let's begin what happened actually in the bigger picture with Rabbi Chanina ben Tradion. Says the Gemara. Keshechala Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma. Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma was the Gadol Hador. He was the Gadol Hador, and he was deadly ill. Halach Rabbi Chanina ben Tradion lebakro. Rabbi Chanina ben Tradion went to visit him. Amar lo, so Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma sees that Rabbi Chanina ben Tradion came to visit him. He says, Chanina achi, my brother, ata yodea shu mazud mi hashamayim himdechua, first white line. Don't you see that this nation, the Romans, min hashamayim himdechua, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave them this power that they have. It's not stam. It's not just arbitrary. Look at them. They destroyed Hashem's house. They burned the Hechal. And they killed the tzaddikim. And destroyed the good people. And still they're standing. Must be that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted them to be in power, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave them the power to do this. So this is min hashamayim, don't you see? Ve'ani shamati alecha, and what I'm hearing about you is she'ata yoshev ve'osek b'Torah, you sit publicly and learn Torah, Umakil geilot barabim, and you gather people to teach them Torah. V'sefer Torah munachat lecha bechekecha, and you're holding a sefer Torah. That's exactly what they don't want you to do. It's a death penalty on someone that does that. What are you doing? Don't you see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave them this power? Stop doing what you're doing. Amar lo, he told him, Min hashamayim yirachamu. Hashem yirachem. He said, Min hashamayim, they will have rahmanut. Hashem will figure it out. So this really enraged Rabbi Yossi ben Kitzma. He says, Amar lo, ani omer lecha dvarim shel ta'am, v'ata omer li min hashamayim yirachamu. I'm telling you logic, you're telling me min hashamayim yirachamu. Tameah ani. I will be surprised if they wouldn't burn you and the Sefer Torah with fire. You know, Rabotai, you have to be so careful when you open your mouth. Even though that you're not giving a klala, he's just saying, I won't be surprised. Like, what are you doing? But that's exactly what's going to happen to Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa. Now, first of all, of course, what's the heter, by the way, of Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa to do this? What's the heter of doing this? So the Gemara in Masechet Sanhedrin, Daf Ayin Dalet, is a whole sugya of Mesirut Nefesh. When a person is mechuyav to give up his life, when he's allowed to give his life, right? And in Beshat Hashmad, when a person, the Gemara there says that in the time that the decrees are against keeping the mitzvot, a person is allowed to give his life up for Hashem, right? You're allowed to. But the problem is, some Rishonim, the Ra and other Rishonim as well, they hold that that's only for a lot aseh. But mitzvot aseh is not necessarily included in that. And learning Torah, teaching Torah is a mitzvot aseh. So what was the heter of Rabbi Hanina ben Tradion to put himself in a situation that he's going to be killed for a mitzvot aseh, being negligent, going publicly against the decree of the Romans? That's one question that we have to certainly answer, which we got to get to it, Be'ezrat Hashem. But nevertheless, it says, Amar lo, Rebbe, ma'ani l'chayei ha'olam haba. Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa asks Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma, he says, do I have olam haba? What do you think about me? Right? You're saying that I may be killed, fine. But do I have olam haba? Right? So says the Gemara, Amar lo, klum ma'aseh ba liyadecha. How do you do things? Have you ever done something big that will give olam haba? Or how do you usually do the mitzvot? Right? Klum ma'aseh ba liyadecha. Amar lo, so Rabbi Hanina ben Tradion tells him, he says, yes, one time, ma'ot shel purim nitchalafu li b'ma'ot shel tzedakah. Gabbai tzedakah, as we mentioned before. And one time, the money of tzedakah got mixed with my own private money of Purim. So, matarot ha'evyonim of people, tzedakah to aniyim, got mixed with my own money that I had saved up, put away for my Seudat Purim. And now I don't know which one is which. And what did I do? I just gave the whole thing to tzedakah, to aniyim. Or that he got mixed up, and he gave it already by mistake, but he never got paid back from tzedakah. He just gave his own money also to the tzedakah. V'chilaktim la'aniyim. And I gave all of it to aniyim. Amar lo, he tells him, wow, im ken michelkecha yeh chelki umegoralecha yeh gorali. Says, if that's the type of person, that's what you did, I wish that my chelek in olam haba should be like your chelek. Even smaller, but like your chelek. And my goral should be like yours. Tremendous. That means, yeah, you have an open ticket to olam haba. This actually, by the way, is a source for a very interesting Rambam. Rambam writes, because this Gemara is strange, like, you get olam haba because of this one mitzvah you do and go to olam haba straight. Rambam says yes. Rambam is on the Mishnah, it's in Pirush Mishnah at the very, very end of Masechet Makot. He says, Rav Chananya ben Akashya Omer, Ratzah HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Zakot et Yisrael, Lefichach hirba lahem Torah u'mitzvot. Right? So it says, Rambam, wait a second.
if you want to be mezakeh Israel, hirba lahem Torah mitzvot, just give them a little less mitzvot. This way everyone could do all the mitzvot. So it says the Rambam, no. What it says is, Hashem has given you so many opportunities because all it takes to go to Olam Haba is one mitzvah. If you do one mitzvah in your lifetime, but you did b'shlemuta, you do it 100% lishma, with simha, with a good heart, with all those things when it's difficult and blah blah, all of those things, one mitzvah you score 100%, take it to Olam Haba. And says Rambam, where do I see that? Avodah Zarah Yud Chet Amud Aleph. From the story of Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma, asking and answering the conversation he had with Rabbi Chanina ben Tradion, you see this issue. Now, other Rishonim disagree with the Rama. Most famously is the Ran in his Drashot, in Drasha Vav. There the Ran says, no, that's not the Pshat in the Gemara. The Pshat in the Gemara is, he said, if you want me to assess what type of Olam Haba you have, tell me how you do your mitzvot. And he said this story, I said, oh, if that's the way you do all of your mitzvot, if you're so careful and so selfless in doing the mitzvot, then you're amazing. If you do all of your life like that, then you will definitely have a tremendous Olam Haba. I'm jealous of you.
Doesn't this contradict the reason why he was put to death? Because he said, I don't have acts of kindness, but now he's saying, wow, I'm jealous of your acts of kindness.
That's true. Again, the Gemara's maskana was before, that's not that he didn't have acts of kindness, but he could have done more and he didn't. Right? And that actually fits with Rambam. Because Rambam says, well, he did this one, b'shlemuta, complete. But he could have done more, he didn't. So he was lacking the protection of Masim Tovim. He was not protected as much as his friend, right? Because he was a Bal Chesed, constantly doing Chasadim, and that creates a certain shield from Yisurim, which Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa did not have. That Rabbi Chanina ben Tradion rather didn't have. Now this may be actually, your question may be the reason that Rambam was pushed to say what he says, not like the Ran. In other words, he could have also learned like the Ran, but that may be one reason that he doesn't, because he says, look, it's a one-time thing that he did, but that one time, says Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma, could give you a tremendous Olam Haba. It's not going to create a tremendous shield from Yisurim, but it will be enough to make it to Olam Haba. Says the Gemara. Well, we're basically now at the time. This is a new story, new part of the story really, of how Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa was actually killed, and it's a tremendous piece by itself. Bezrat Hashem will leave that to start it tomorrow morning. Chazak u'baruch.